Hello, is the audio nice and clear? Let's see if people can respond before we get going. Okay, so Joe's in the chat room, that's one person, and you can hear me okay. Cool, and there's not much noise on this because obviously I'm using the speakers on the camera here. So we're not using the nice audio that I would normally have set up for podcasting. Right. So I'm going to have a sip of my tea. There's some echo, yeah. There's going to be echo in the kitchen. Right. Bit of tea. Can get ready. So yeah, welcome to Darker Days Radio. If you are, there's only one person here, but I'll do it as the introduction as always because it will go online, it will go onto YouTube. So this is Darker Days Radio. I am one of the regular hosts, Chris, and you can actually hear my cat in the background. And we usually cover World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness games, plus other horror games. So mainly RPGs, though we do talk about board games and war games. Tonight's painting session I'll be going into is looking at the... Let's see if we can bring this into focus. I'm just watching it because I've got a delay. We're looking at the... Oh, let me get my light. So there we go. We're looking at the Van Saar for Necromunda. So I painted these guys about 6 months ago. And I've got some new ones. So the new ones make use of... a whole plethora of new weaponry that you can get from Forge World. So let's see if we can get the lighting a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this guy has got a grav gun. This guy here has got a rad gun. So that's kind of like a flame weapon, but it does radiation damage. This guy is my brand new heavy. Yeah, he's got a classic plasma cannon. The cat can shut up. Give me a second. Oh, let me wander around. There you go. And yeah, there we go. Sorry. Yeah, so we've got a whole host of new weapons on these guys. I quite like what I've done here. So this is actually a bit of a kit bash because we've got the resin weapon from resin weapons set from Forge World, which is a plasma las combi weapon. But she's going to have a energy shield that I will put on at the end because it's clear plastic. And also we've got a Escher head on the model that comes from the gang leader for the Escher. So it looks kind of a bit more cyberpunky. So yeah, let me just go back into the chat room. Yes, okay. So what have we got going on? So I've obviously airbrushed these to do the priming. And that means I've done a zenithal prime, so that means you spray completely black, followed by a spray of grey, followed by a spray of white, and every time you do it, you're doing it at a progressively higher angle, so you're catching the tops, not the underside, so you get natural shading done. Then spraying on top of that, I've used Haster Purple by Skull 75. I've also made use of, on top of that then, Mayhem Red. And then finally, Bar Crimson. And that gives the shading I need and gives me the highlights immediately. So we're going to go through on this, I'm just gonna look at what my next steps are, because I've painted these a while ago. So I've got on the blog for Dark Days Radio how I go about this. So there is the armor is washed with Arbuckle's Brown. I do the skin, and then I do the metallic bits using pig iron. And also, do I use anything else on them? They're all silvery. So we're going to crack on with this and get going on it. So the first thing is we're going to do a wash on them. What else can we say that's been going on? The other thing I've not yet finished. Let me have a look back at my camera. And can I minimize this? It makes my life a little bit easier. No, not really. Oh, there we go. There we go. I can bring that to there and bring this to here. Okay, so the other thing I've been working on is this, which is a Kingdom Death model, and this is the Lion Knight. So I've been doing non-metallic metals for the armor, and that needs finishing. So it needs real sparkles and get the contrast even higher on the abdomen, the body armor. I'm quite happy with the skin on the on his entourage. So I've tried to do a variety of skin tones, and then I've also done some freehand detail on the cloak. But yeah, that's him. So I need to finish him off at some point. So that will be a project that you will see here, I hope, when I get round to it. And then generally, there are questions about gaming, so let's just make sure we've got people that can join us. Let me just share the Twitch. I'm just going to say, we are live on Twitch. There, and I'll do the same on Facebook with Twitch. Maybe it'll share directly from here. No, it's not what I want. But yeah, we can do some other gaming. So my own home game has been Warhammer 4th edition. So Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. That's been going really well with a setting, with a campaign set just after the meteor struck Mordheim. So it's set in that area. And what else? We've also had some really good episodes out recently from the podcast. So we've got some great cyberpunk content because Jackalope LARP, they are doing a Cyberpunk 2020 LARP event in Texas in end of May. So if you want to go over to the podcast and listen to those episodes, you can do that later. And yeah, so Joe's got a gaming question. First RPG you ever played? Which race class was your character clan? And first game you ever DM'd? So first game I ever DM'd, quite easy. D&D Basic Classic Edition, Black Box, Red Dragon. I think it was the 18th publishing of Basic Classic D&D. That went quite well. Obviously my gaming group was made up of people who I've been wargaming with for a long time. So as a 16-year-old, when you've been wargaming and doing campaigns for Necromunda and everything, you're already kind of into what a campaign is, into narrative and playing towards that without getting caught up in too much in the winning and losing. First game I played in, let's think. I think the first thing I actually ever played in was when I finally got to uni, and I played in a Mage the Ascension game, and I played a virtual adept because I was obsessed with them, and obviously I've run Mage the Ascension before then, so I had a good idea of what I wanted to run. Righty, let's see. I'll just put stuff on the Discord with we are live painting, and do the same here. Okay, we are live. And I'm just going to put this up here. Random. Live on Twitch. Painting minis. Okay, let's see if that gets some more things. Okay, Shy. Yeah, so with the hard stuff. Yeah, so obviously my first gaming stuff was first of all D&D, then Star Wars Western Games 2nd Edition Revised, classic Wild Eye D6 dice pool system, and then following that was Vampire the Masquerade, and then Mage the Ascension, and then when I got to university, it was some other game, you know, playing Mage, and then into Requiem and Chronicles of Darkness. So when I was undergrad, I really went hard into Chronicles of Darkness because it really said more to me. Right, so as I said, we're doing a wash on these minis. I'm going to find my trusty brush to do this. That is, it doesn't matter what state it's in. Trying to find a good one. Yeah, that'll do. I think that'll be alright. And hello to Jarek. So, Jarek, are you a fan of the podcast, or have you joined us from some other area of the web? So I'm just watering it down on my wet palette. So this is this Arbuckle's brown, and this is just to help give some extra tone and shadow. So we're going to take. I really want to do a lot of work on the leader eventually. From the Brushwielders Union, yes. So yeah, this is basically my work for going to be my work for March, along with everything else, because I finished painting in January, February, my Age of Sigmar models, and which is of course what I've been playing. I was playing last weekend, was my first ever game of Age of Sigmar, which actually I quite enjoyed. I quite like the way the system has a lot of stuff going on and how it works. It reminds me of War Machine Hordes to a certain extent, maybe a bit faster. It seems to cope with lots of models better. Okay, so yeah, that's just a wash on there of the brown, just to give a bit more shading. Let's crack on and try and get a good number of these done. So yeah, you know, I mean, the point is when you're painting models, as always, don't worry too much about trying to be too neat at this stage. You know, the whole point is it all comes together right at the end. This is really all about preparing the model in quick ways to get all the pre-shading you need so that you can go back in and do all the highlights and everything. So if you want to play some 40k, just got to get some time in. Yeah, I've not played the new edition. I think I've been out of it too long to want to actually play. I think I get my 40k kicks via Necromunda, obviously. Maybe Kill Team eventually at some point. I've got a lot of scenery, obviously, for Necromunda, so Kill Team would be fairly simple to get into and get a good taste of modern 40k. I have plenty of Genestealer Cult. I think the last time I played 40k was using my Tau back when I was working for Games Workshop in a shop in 2005 when I went really cold turkey on GW because I was leaving the company, doing my PhD, and I really just didn't think I'd have time for playing big games, and RPGs were easier and cheaper and my main focus. Yeah, okay. So what's going to happen with these models once they're dry, once this wash is dry, we're going to go in and start highlighting up the armor plates with the red. And we'll be using something like, let's see, we'll be using, that's intense red. I've got numerous reds here. Let me try and find what the hell am I freaking looking for. We'll be using something like Tiamat Orange as the final highlight to do an edge highlight, and it's not Bar Crimson. I know I've got another red paint somewhere. I can't have left it upstairs. That'd be stupid. Yeah, of course not. And I'll be using Barrett Red for before that to get the highlights I want. What I was going to say, so Necromunda's been is obviously another thing I want to ensure I can get a new campaign running. I've got to get other things sorted out first though before I can commit to running a campaign. RPG wise, once we're done playing Warhammer 4th edition, we'll be going into, I would like to think we're going to have a taster of the new 40k RPG, because I really enjoyed running that, and I want to actually just run the basic introductory campaign, which is a book called Dark Tides, and that should be really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Otherwise, for an upcoming episode, Chig and I will be looking at Powered by the Apocalypse as a system, because I have a copy of City of Mist, and I've got coming soon a review copy of Cult, and that is also running off Powered by the Apocalypse. So we're going to get into how that system works and what the advantages of the system is. Obviously, I think it's more narrative driven, so it should be interesting. City of Mist, the way I'm going to run that, I just want to finally get around to grokking more of the rules, is timing, actually, given that it was release date, is something that's actually going to be more akin to, say, Devil May Cry. So Devil May Cry 5 is out today to buy on Steam and all good gaming stores for computer games, and I want to run something that kind of has that kind of feel, so that neo-noir mixed with demons and angels. Right, almost done the wash on these. So if you're not if you're not really that, if you want it easier to paint something, because I mean the way I've done the base coats on this is more elaborate to get as much shading as possible, but you could easily just, spray, to do what I'm doing, just get a can of red spray paint and then just bang it on, and then use a number of good washes to get the shading you need. So you could do quite a good thin, maybe a shade with like Nuln Oil, and then also use a shading of a brown, just so you get more depth of colour with it. So yeah, that would be a quick way of doing this. Right, okay. So yeah, I've got 10 of these guys, and I've already got another 10 already painted up. I bet these are going to end up looking a lot better. That's the thing, is like I'm going to try and keep my painting style to a basic level, so they match the rest. Okay, so that's that shading done. And because Jarrett mentioned it, so also I am a member of the, let me just find my camera, there we go, Brush Wielders Union, International Association of Miniatures Painters. So the point of this is, you've got kind of a mantra that, the whole point is that it's you've got something which I've got to fix my first stamping, actually. What miniatures you've painted, so you've got to track what your painting notes are. You've got space for any recipes of the paint, or your painting recipes. Any accomplishments, could be gaming, could be winning an award for painting. And the whole point ultimately is to what? Is to paint miniatures really, and paint them for your enjoyment. And also, wargaming is a social hobby and visually a compelling hobby. And if you really want to I feel to get the most out of it, you should feel like you should do at least some painting of miniatures. Like, it's a part of the hobby. Putting together, painting them, the spectacle of seeing them on, good terrain. And it doesn't take long to do some decent basic painting if you do good preparation and you just work in a routine. It may seem like a lot, but actually it's not. Having taught painting, you can get very good results quite easily. And you want to do this also for your opponents, because your opponents want to see a good gaming table with nice miniatures on it. And that requires just putting in a bit of effort. Otherwise, we could be in a position of where you're just playing with counters, like little discs. The bases. Miniatures are glorified counters, and the same with the terrain. And I think that's one of the things that's sad about, say, tournament play for like War Machine Hordes, where you just get 2D terrain. And the same could be said for Guild Ball as well. That can happen the same. And I think you're just losing out on the best aspects of what it is, which is wargaming is a wonderful spectacle of cool miniatures painted up, and you can see a story being played out before you. Right, okay, let's see if this first one is drying off. It's going to take a little bit longer. So while they're drying, I'm going to get my bit of tissue paper, and I am going to also prepare a miniature I've got here, which is a cyber doggy type thing from Wild West Exodus. So this is going to be really cool for as a pet within Necromunda, using how it's a pet. So we're just going to find some basic pig iron paint. Where's my pig iron? There we go. Because I'm going to need this anyway for other details on the Van Saar. And of course, the worst thing is when on your P3 paints, the little tab breaks, so you can't open the bloody pots. But not the end of the world. Okay, cool. So really, not going to be doing too much special on this, other than just slapping it on quite happily. Get a bit of water on there, just so it can flow. But yeah, okay. Let's think what other good stuff is going on with gaming right now. So I've had some really good reviews of The Hunger Within, which is a Chronicles of Darkness scenario that I have written, and that's in the Storyteller's Vault. You can find links for that on the podcast, or on the blog, or you can go directly to Storyteller's Vault and look for The Hunger Within. We're also I'm working on finishing a Changing the Lost product for the Storyteller's Vault. So this is going to be an entire setting book for Changing the Lost. First edition. Second edition is going to have to wait rules wise while I work on that, and that's going to be a full setting for the city of Venice in Italy. Okay, I'll leave him to dry. And then also Mike is working on a Geist the Sin Eaters second edition Storyteller Vault adventure, and that will be set in Paris. And the aim is I will also be running that at UK Games Expo, because we have some very interesting things coming up for that. I can't divulge anything more. So that's the plan for that. Let's see if we've got any more people that are going to pop over. Yeah. No, we haven't got many people yet popping up, but we will crack on. Right, let's see how we're doing. Should really get a hairdryer to do that. But what we have got to do, which there's a lot of it, is we should pick out all the weapons. So I'm going to use this mid kind of grey colour. I say mid grey colour. Is it mid grey colour? Do I highlight with it? I use it as a base, so it's not mid. It's a quite a dark grey. When I find it in my thing, it's not. Did I use a blue? No. Not decay black. We're going to need that one. We're going to use this grey because it has quite a bit of a blue content, and against the red, that means it contrasts quite well. I'm just checking everything else I've done on previous bits. Yeah. We don't need that. We just need a good layer brush. There we go. Not in the T, not in the T. That would be bad. Okay, so let's go back to... oh yeah, dropper bottles are great. I don't often use GW paints. I have some, and Proactive Press ones, I have some still left over I don't use often. I'm basically Vallejo and Scale 75. Just because it's better control. And the wet palette I'm using is one from Red Brush, I want to say. So let's get started on this. We're just, yeah, again, don't need to be too careful with this because this is a base coat to the weapons. Yeah, it is a really good palette. The only problem I found with it is the magnets don't hold on it very well, so I've lost the magnets on the painting palette tray side thing. So I need to replace the magnets in it, and I need to clean it out anyway because I've got paint that's just like stuck on it, so it needs to have a nice hot soapy scrub. Okay, so that's the gun done, and then I need to check which armor plates I'm doing on my, so it's knees, greaves, shoulders. Okay, let's try not fudge this up. Which bits we're doing grey. There. And we're going to just do these bands at the top. You can see that. I'll do the other side. You know, again, don't worry too much because we're going to go back in with a red to highlight these arm plates anyway, and then the orange, so we can correct things quite happily. Okay, we want this arm plate here, and the same on this arm. It's somewhere under that. Guess it's that bit there. There we go. And then let me have a look. Obviously, there's the cyberjack, the thing coming out of the head. We've got the knee plates. and the bits on the feet. So yeah, if you're not, if you want, you want some camaraderie other than coming to Dark Days Radio Discord, obviously, and you're into painting toy soldiers, you should definitely check out the Brush Wielders Union. It is run by the magnificent Simon Berman, and also they just got discount support from Private Press, so you can use that discount support for certain things, especially at like conventions, and you'll get like 10% off maybe. I don't quote me on that. Just check the Twitter, and you can find out. Okay, so she's done with the black bits there. Let's do him, because it's really easy to do on him because he's got big gun. Big guns paint easy. So again, I'm just gonna slap it on. Not worrying too much, just using a typical Games Workshop layer brush, so this is equivalent of maybe a size 1, maybe a size 2. Also, the thing to remember is you don't need a tiny brush to do detail. In fact, tiny little brushes are sometimes the hardest thing to use because they don't have as many bristles to hold the tip to a nice steady point, which is what we want. The reason why I quite like my new Winsor Newton 07 miniatures brush is the bristles are much shorter, so it's a much more stubby brush, and that means I feel it has better snap, better quality to it, and it holds its tip, and its tip is controlled much more than regular watercolor brushes, which is effectively what you were using here. I have to say I always use sable brushes where possible, and if you want some options other than Winsor Newton, other than Games Workshop, I highly recommend using Da Vinci brand brushes. I use those all the time when I was in Germany because they were easy to get hold of because they are a German company. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that on her. So I think that's the weapon done. I'm already like 30 minutes into the stream. I'm not doing too much interesting, but like I say, that's why it's painting and chatting and painting. Let's get the rear cyber link done. Other content we've got planned. So for the podcast, we're mostly going to be talking about fairly soon Geist, the Sanita 2nd edition, of course. Cult, as I said, powered by the Apocalypse games, which Chig is taking the lead on because he knows far more than I do. Wargaming wise, I want to play some more Age of Sigmar, definitely some more Necromunda, and now I have my Necromunda terrain finished. It's perfect stuff actually for playing the Batman miniatures game. So I've got a fairly decent collection of miniatures for that. So I am going to look at running that because then the terrain is very Ace Chemicals plant, and I've got the Joker, and I've got some Joker goons and some other ones, and Batman and some police officers. So that'll be fun. What was that being asked to me? Have you looked at Judgment at all? What is Judgment? I now ask. What is Judgment? I have not heard of that. Is Judgment a miniatures game? I wait for the void while I ask about that, because obviously I can't right now go and Google it because I've got my hands busy. Warhammer 40k Judgment, I guess. No, I'm not looked at that. Oh, it's a 54 scale miniatures game. No, I haven't. Who's it made by? Thing is, 54 millimeter scale miniatures games are a hard one because terrain. Let's just say it's terrain that is often the thing that I find is limiting for it, because so much terrain is made, for these games are made for 28 to 35mm scale. It's almost ubiquitous, and 54mm scale terrain then just feels like a faff. I know some terrain is quite generic and scales to any scale you want. I mean, that's why I do one of my gaming boards is desert terrain, because desert terrain works for works for Age of Sigmar quite happily. It works for Necromunda Ash Wastes. It works quite well for let's say Adeptus Titanicus. And I remember when, of course, Inquisitor was all the rage in Games Workshop, and it was big terrain. But it depends. I guess it depends what this skirmish game looks like. So I will have to have a look at it and see what I feel is the type of terrain I would want to run on it if I was to get into it, and also just see what the quality of the miniatures are like. Because there are companies out there that do some really great 54mm scale miniatures, scale 75 to 75mm. I think they tried to do a skirmish game as well based on those miniatures. But anyway, back to the question at hand. Gaming question from Joe. Favourite antagonists in RPGs or villains, and why? My favourite antagonists in RPGs. That's an interesting one. That's a bit loose. Let me think. Let's go with the. I like the Aslu from Werewolf the Forsaken. The spider spirits. They're kind of creepy looking. I just like what they do. And then also, Seers of the Throne for Mage are just absolute bastards. They make the technocracy look like babies. Yeah. Yeah, the technocracy, just like are kind of anti-hero kind of thing, because they're fighting a fight which you can kind of understand the reason for doing it. They do actually have generally some lofty ideal, whereas the Seers of the Throne just want to keep humanity under the yoke and use them. So the other thing I'll say about miniatures is I don't often use miniatures in RPGs. The only time I've used miniatures in RPGs for gaming is has been for Iron Kingdoms RPG, because obviously I've got plenty of armies for that game for War Machine Hordes, so we can represent things quite easily for can represent most things for most scenarios, because I've got things like Gatormen, I've got Scorn, I've got Menoth, Kador, Pharaoh, things like that. So yeah, but I would say that if I can get in the position to own a bit more stuff for 40k, having plenty of miniatures and variety of miniatures for the 40k RPG would then make quite good spectacles for the for combat scenes. Because that's the point, you're just cracking them out for particular combat scenes. You're not using them for dungeon crawling. and needing to know where everyone is in a room at any one time. Likewise, I'm quite interested in what Cubicle 7's doing for the Age of Sigmar RPG. That's using a D6 system. I think most probably quite similar to the 40k RPG. Because again, Age of Sigmar is not like the Warhammer RPG. You've got quite a disparity in scale, like what a Stormcast Eternal can do versus the power level of a regular free people from one of the realms. They're quite different characters, so being able to accommodate that power difference is important, and that's where the percentile system breaks down. That's what we saw with that's what we saw with things like the 40k RPGs that were originally out. Yeah. Okay. And I've got another question there. Do you think Modiphius should release Vampire the Masquerade or World of Darkness figures? I don't see why not. They make decent models for Fallout. They make very good models from my view of for Star Trek. And if miniatures will help you visualize more easily combat scenes, which don't happen too often, then so be it. And so long as you've got a nice selection so that players can tell the difference between each other's character on the battle mat, then that I think is a nice asset. I mean, you don't need them, obviously, but I think it would be an interesting route for them to go down. They clearly have the expertise and the contacts in order to make such miniatures, and it's just a case then of making them. It's just a case of making them look iconic. What differentiates a Tremere vampire or a La Sombra in miniatures form? So you're gonna have to think about modelling certain effects for disciplines in use, just so you get the feel of that, and then having variety in the form of male, female, and also variety in both. So they look maybe recognisably from some different ethnic backgrounds, just so you've got miniatures that you feel like represent the diversity of people that exist in our world and would be vampires. Not all vampires are not all frock coat wearing, crushed velvet wearing, leather coat wearing, silver plated katana type people. And if they are in your games, you should kill those type of characters on sight, because that's lame. Yeah, they'll do. I'm sure if they wish to do miniatures, they will have to do some of the major characters just because they're iconic. But that means also that's just more that you can get, and you could always do a little bit of kit bashing and a repaint so they look like someone else. You'd also get some variety with. You'd want some miniatures for blood bonded, animals. Ghouls, mortal thugs. So you can have just about as much, variety of miniatures as you get out of the Batman miniatures game, where they've got, police officers and escaped convicts and so forth. Why not? Okay, let's keep cracking on. That's 4 down doing this. Yeah, there's a point where you just go, oh, really? Do I need to do more of these? But, we need to get other base stuff done on it, and then it's quite easy. Everything becomes a bit like just doing edge highlights. Fortunately, there isn't too much skin to do. And the new Necromunda models are really fantastic. They're really good to kit bash with, to combine. You can use miniatures, bits from different miniature kits to make some really interesting, like bounty hunters and special characters, or to represent the equipment that they've stolen. I've still got some pieces on so many kits, whether it's the Genes of the Cult, or it's the two Van Saar kits I got, or the Escher, or the Goliath. You know, I can combine them and really make some interesting gangers at some point, which I am sure I will do when I know what I want to do. Mostly if I buy like an Orlok gang or something, and then I can festoon them with some really fancy kit. Okay. Yeah, Lego's always a classic for D&D, isn't it? I think that's everyone ends up doing that route at some point when they can't afford to get specific models, and it can feel like it's a lot. There's a lot of investment, especially for D&D. I think I'm not really a fan of Reaper's designs for miniatures, and I think one of the things I'm not part of my dislike of that is I like miniatures that have like a particular setting they're from. So you look at Iron Kingdoms, they have a design language that goes through all the factions, everything, so you know what world they're from. And just generic fantasy models just do nothing for me. You know, I just can't see them being anywhere but like, you know, the Lidl version of I say Lidl. You know what I mean, like a discount store version of Lord of the Rings land. Like, you know, I want to go somewhere else than bloody Middle Earth. So, you know, I'm biased in that respect on how I want to have my miniatures. I've got some good terrain for miniatures. I've got the Terraclips stuff, which is really great. You can't get any more. Yeah, right. Go to the And also, I'm not a fan of let's get into other type of miniature stuff. I'm not a fan of Restic as a material. This is why I would say recently I'm not so into my Proto Press because for the same, you know, for the amount I pay for a box of Van Saar or other Necromunda models, I'm getting a lot more bang for my buck than 12 Restic miniatures, and they cost about almost twice as much. So, you know, I don't like that material one iota. It just does not clean up very well at all. And the other thing is, I'm quite happy with how you know, GW's plastics these days, I'm finding compared to competitors, are per model generally good values. I mean, you're sure, you know, the individual models, your commanders cost a bit more, but that's because, like, you know, they're making a mold for a model that they're only going to sell like one of on average to everyone, whereas, like, you know, a box of basic troopers, they can sink the cost a little bit because people are going to buy those boxes far more frequently, so it's a bit of a lost leader. It'll retain its value for a long time. Yeah. Let's see. Suddenly, I've been trying to get the Doomtown Deadlands miniatures. They're a pain to find. I have not seen those. I do. Sorry, love. So much. It's local Chilean legend when it comes to miniatures. Okay, do go on. So there was a gaming store, Piedra Bruja, or Witch's Rock, where they had the original figures of Warhammer Cthulhu Exalted and the figures we called chair. Yes, as in Chickenfire. The catch was that the chair figures was that they were cheaper, made out of lead, and they were bootlegs. Okay, right. Yeah, we don't use lead anymore. Part of that, I think, was actually the move from lead was partly because of health and safety, because GW wanted to market to children. That's why Rackham didn't bother, because they were selling them as like fine miniatures. And also the move away from lead is also because lead is expensive for things, because it's used in a raw material for electronics as well, for stuff. Anyway, carrying on. One day, one of my friends buys a chair dreadnought, and this thing pays for its store itself is pretty small. He trips the dreadnought. As soon as it impacts, the thing literally turns to dust. Fucking dust. Really, that's very piss poor material. Whether that would be lead, I don't know. I wouldn't expect lead. Lead's soft. Lead shouldn't shatter to dust like that. That would have to be something else. So that would have to be some other cheap metal if it was cast that way, or some sort of like ceramic type material. Yeah, I think lead can age. I think it can age and oxidize. I think that could possibly be the reason. Of course, if it's poor quality lead, it's mostly still got a lot of oxygen in there, which will make it more crystalline in nature, rather than, I say crystalline, less metallic in nature, and more like a non-metallic material, because that's what oxidation does. I mean, that's why you look at iron, and iron rusts and it flakes, and that's because we've changed the chemical structure of the metal, which is able to be fairly amorphous, to something that is unable to be amorphous, and instead when anything exerts some sort of pressure or strain on it, rather than being able to easily deform, it instead will flake off in layers. So yeah, it could be lead, but just poor quality, or it was very old and left to oxidize for too long. Okay. Oh, the fun of painting little tiny details. Don't worry though, everyone will get there. It's just something you have to do. You just have to do as conveyor belts, and then they're done. I mean, it'll get a lot easier once I've got past this stage. Whether you'll see me painting more of these guys, or I'll be working on the Lion Knight is another thing entirely. We'll see how much work I do on these in the next coming week. Yeah. God, using the caps from drinks. The caps from drinks. Surely they're not made of lead? That'd be very weird to have lead caps on drinks. Like actual cans of beverage, I think you can. Aluminium, yeah, not the easiest thing to cast with and do it, but well, I don't think. I think that opens up a whole other host of issues. Because the thing is that the reason why I still every so often buy Rackham miniatures on eBay lead comes out with the details so well, and so easy to work with because you can straighten the miniatures quite easily. It doesn't crack if it gets damaged, it just bends, and also the details come out very well because lead is such a wonderfully soft metal when it's, especially when molten, and it can flow into all the details. And at some point, I mean, if guys you want to see that, I mean, if you want to see us stream some gaming miniatures based, I'm all for trying that. Obviously you'll have to put up with the fact that it'll be streamed in the kitchen. Maybe that'll be good though. You know, you see all these other people who stream and they're doing it from their gaming stores, or they're doing it from a proper studio like Beasts of War do. But maybe we'll have a different vibe. We'll have the kind of more coffee shop vibe, you know, where we're there, colour, you know, with brews and a bit of banter that isn't too much about trying to sell a game to you and being ultra serious about it. Okay, well, 1 hour in. We're going to carry on for maybe about another half hour, and then I will finish up because I've got some other stuff to do. So, and I'll show you the terrain now. It's all painted up as well. That will be interesting. The great thing about Necromunda is there's so much fun to have with the game currently, and everything that's out now you can get in the 2 core books, and there's just so much variety of what you can play. There's more so than there ever was for Necromunda, actually. It's insane. I really do love it. And hopefully we're going to get some new stuff in the future, like gangs and guilds that we've never seen, guilds especially. And gameplay wise, yeah, we had a really good game, myself and James, who's been on the podcast every so often, you know, with the Saar versus the Escher, and it was just like taking chunks out of each other slowly using las weaponry, because the Saar are very las weapon heavy, and lots of long range shooting, and so are the Escher, you know, and they're not the toughest, so it was just like just flesh wounds galore being done to each person. So hopefully I might get another game on Sunday of this, I hope, or maybe some more Age of Sigmar. Okay, I think that's that guy done. 3 more to go, hey? I'm just going to do some more on this actually. I just want to make that nice and dark. Yeah. So this guy is kind of cool. One of my new favourites because he's got a hand flamer, and he's also got a servo claw and some grenades. Because you know, you've always got to have some grenades in the Underhive, just in case. Can you see that? Sorry, I brought him too far into off shot. Literally behind me there. There we go. There we go, you can see him now properly. I'm watching it and obviously there's a bit of delay. So yeah, he's kind of cool. I think he's got a neat pose and he looks a bit badass. Yes, the Necromunda is set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. It's set on the world of Necromunda, and the game assumes that the gangs that you are controlling are in the Hive Primus, which is controlled over by Lord Helmar, and below him are the higher houses, the noble houses, and then below those are the other houses, and those houses are the ones which make up the gangs. So in the Underhive, the gangs are fighting for control over resources, over territory, and over business. and there are 6 gangs in the basic game. So there is House Orlok, and they are a mining guild. Escher, who are all female due to genetic craziness, because males are born in their bloodlines as very weak, and they do chemical weapons. House Goliath, who are brutish and use stimulants, and they work in the foundries. House Cawdor, who are a kind of like, they reclaim stuff because they work with whatever anyone else disposes of. So they work with junk. They also are religious zealots, and the origin of the Redemptionist Crusade. There's Van Saar, who make their weapons using an STC, standard template construct machine, that is faulty, and so the fault means that it's radiating dangerous, toxic energy, and that's why they are, as a gang, are not very tough and have to wear armoured undersuits that kind of like what's the word I'm looking for, that scrub their blood of toxins. And then there's House Delac. House Delac are like sneaky buggers and use like stealth and are like master spies and tricksters, and they have lots of stealth weaponry and silence weaponry like flechette launchers. So there's a lot of option there, a lot more than ever was. Every house now is very unique. They have unique profiles and unique skills. The way they gain skills is different and to each other, and unique weaponry. And then also let's think, what else is there? There's some other games. There's Genes of the Cult. There is the Chaos Cults. You can play a gang of Venators, which are basically just made up from any gang. You know, the members come from all houses, so that they are bounty hunters, and you can get some cool miniatures for that, who are like beastmen. But yeah, 40k lore is complicated. There's a lot of it. I don't think it's that complicated to get into. But there is a depth to it, which you can go down rabbit holes very far and get lost and not quite understand how certain things tie together or why they're there. But there's some really great stuff you can get out of it for gaming. I really highly recommend the Eisenhorn trilogy for 3 books, which can really just get you into the 40k setting without giving you an insight into what the setting is like away from the front lines. Because we always think about 40k as just there's only war, you're on the front lines, and it's just fight all the time. But Eisenhorn trilogy gives you an idea of what it's like to be away from the front lines and what else goes on. And the fact there are actually then plenty of worlds in the Imperium which are actually peaceful, relatively speaking. How long they last that way, I don't know. And there's tons of books, obviously, novels to get into, which cover the events of the Horus Heresy. We've got all the more recent events, because they're really pushing on the timeline now with like the return of the Primarchs and their influence on events. We've had also the destruction of Cadia and the Citrix Maledictum, whatever, it's the warp storm that's like, you know, torn the galaxy in half kind of thing. And yeah, they're doing kids books, so they're doing the audio ones as well based off those. So the 40k one is read out, narrated by David Tennant and the Age of Sigmar one is narrated by Billy Piper, both of Doctor Who fame. And the thing is that, you know, again, you've got these like purists who go, oh no, you're kidifying 40k, you're kidifying Warhammer. It's like, do you really want to act like that? Like, you know, you want the hobby to keep going. Like, let's be honest, people like me don't buy enough 40k to keep the hobby going. You know, whereas kids, as long as they've got disposable income, they will keep it going. And GW, you know, it's like GW is, you know, out of all the companies that is on the high street in the UK, is bucking the trend and outperforming everyone. They are a true British success story through and through, especially recently, because, you know, since we've had a change in CEO of the company, it is they are making games that sell the miniatures, and that is doing well. So, you know, things like Blackstone Fortress, things like Necromunda, and so forth. David Tennant's voice is narrating one of them, Billy Piper the other one. There's also of all the characters to return from the Warhammer, from the world that was the Warhammer Fantasy world, is Gotrix, the dwarf, the troll slayer, who's never died. He went into the Chaos Wastes, and the world ended while he was in there, and the Chaos Gods spat him back out into the mortal realms of Age of Sigmar. So, you know, he is back, and I believe in the audiobook he is voiced by why can't I think of his name now? Brian Blessed, who, if you're wondering who the fuck is Brian Blessed, we are talking about the Lord of the Hawkmen in Flash Gordon, amongst other things. So yeah, it's a pretty cool time. I mean, I actually do think there's a lot of stuff. Also, if you really want to get into Age of Sigmar as well, they did in the last previous 2 issues of White Dwarf, they did the campaign rules for Age of Sigmar Skirmish, and you know, the Age of Sigmar rules don't take up that much, so, you know, it doesn't take much to be able to just buy a box of miniatures and start playing Skirmish even, and enjoy the game that way, and have a very narrative heavy experience without having to paint, you know, more than 10 models aside. They are bringing out a new Skirmish game, though, I believe, later in the year, called Warcry, which is set in the All Points. The All Points being literally a hub of interdimensional gateways between the mortal realms that Chaos have taken over. So you can really have your cake and eat it that way. And as I said, if you want to play 40k on the cheap, there is always Kill Team. And the thing is also with Kill Team, and also with Age of Sigmar Skirmish as well, is that if you get the terrain boxes that they do, those come with little gaming boards, which I think are about 2 foot by 3 foot. So again, you can just play it on your kitchen surface and kitchen table without having to have a huge amount of space. And I think that's important, because in this day and age, what with the price of houses and the size of rentals that people have these days, because we're getting squeezed into coffin cubes more and more and more, you know, you don't have huge spaces to game. So being able to play Warhammer the way you want to play it, and if that means a dozen models aside on a small table, then so be it. GW is having their cake and eating it. They are trying to allow people to enjoy their miniatures in as many formats as possible. Right, and I've almost done all of this dark grey on all the plates and the weapons. Huzzah! Huzzah, he says. We'll see what we can do with a bit of edge highlighting before this session is over. Again, if you want to get in contact with Dark Age Radio, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter at Dark Age Radio, you can find us on our Discord if you go to our podcast, www.darker-days.org. You can also find us on Instagram, where you'll find pictures of miniatures and other things going on. You can also find us on WordPress, where our blog is, and there you'll see some reviews of miniature games mainly, and board games. And if you've got any questions, you can email us at darkerdaysradio@gmail.com. Right, okay, so I think what they've done is you need to look into it a bit more. I'm not too sure yet, I've not delved into it. I think with the Fallout Wasteland Warfare, there's the war game, and then they've brought out the thing which makes it more into a roleplay game, and then they are bringing out a separate RPG at a later date that runs off their 2D20 system. So, do you need miniatures for it? No. I don't think so. So I think you're going to just have to delve a bit more, or I will have a look and find out. And if I ask nicely, maybe Chris Birch will send me a review copy, and I can have a look at it for you guys. I know shit about Fallout though. I hate the computer games because they are not my cup of tea of RPG. I do not like RPGs where you're doing the shooting with your character. You aim to do a headshot, and then the computer is rolling the dice for you based upon your skill set, and thus your shot has missed. And then you can game the system by, say you've got a rocket launcher, you don't aim it at your target, you aim it at its its feet, so that you've missed, but you hit automatically the point right in front of it, rather than it, zipping off out of control because you've got poor, firearm skill or whatever. So I really don't like it as a computer game RPG. I'm sure it's perfectly wonderful for I'm sure it's great for as a tabletop miniatures game. There's some really good terrain that you can get, which really captures the feel of the landscapes. Especially because, again, it's all MDF terrain. You just got to bang some stickers on it, Modifius do sticker packs that you can put onto the buildings and the advertising boards, and it makes it look more Fallout. Okay, so we've done all this dark grey. That's a bit boring, isn't it? So let's do a little bit of highlighting. So we're going to use our Beherit red. Give it a nice shake. Dot it out. So that has it's more of an orangey red. And we're going to use our. This is basically my optional. It will be my second gang leader. Actually, I don't think she's the best one to do it. I don't think the armor plates are quite as fun on her to do. So let's use this guy here. So. And also change brush. There we go. That's good. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just applying it as kind of an edge. Well, a bit of almost an edge highlight. I'm just trying to brush it to that edge there. I want to get the highlights there, and I'm going to do the same, bring it in up off the shaded areas onto the very top of the highlight. I'm just going to check my other miniature just to make sure I'm doing it in the same style. Yeah, that's okay. And it's incredibly subtle, okay, but it is going to work. I'm also going to do some on this faceplate. Again, I'm just trying to push it up to the top layer. And as I'm pushing it up, I'm depositing it at the top with the tip of the brush, but also creating a natural transition. Just want to bring it down a little bit there, just so we got a bit of interest along the front of the visor. We'll do a little bit of edge highlight there, a little bit of highlight there. Bit of an edge highlight there, and there, and on the back ass plate. So I'm just trying to touch, flick it up and draw the paint up onto the top of the armor plates, because we want to keep the shadow that we've got, and we just want to basically have a good base colour for the final edge highlights we do with the more orange colour. Just going to go back in on that, really strengthen it. And this is the point of doing thin layers, because we want to build up that colour, but we don't want to put too much paint on at once that it obscures it, or we don't want to mess with the paint too much, because as it dries, and this dries very quickly because we've thinned it, that we're tearing the paint off the surface again with the brush, and creating texture that isn't there, and really just messing it around too much. And you can always, if you're not happy quite with where the highlights have ended, or you think it's a bit too strong, you can always go back in with one of the colours you used before and use it as like a bit of a wash, and it will just help unify the colours by toning them all together. So you see what I mean, that his head there is catching that red now a lot. So if we compare him to the one we were actually working on, no, why did I put him down? Now I've gone blind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. So the contrast will also be enhanced once we start doing the light grey highlights on the weapons and the armor plates, and also we do the blue eyes and the green cabling. Okay, so we're almost done with this stream, because it'll be good to do something else and have a break from painting these guys. And of course, a lot of this bit at the back we're going to put metallic paint on, and also see this bit down the front here, that's going to be metallic as well. Okay. I've totally forgot to do some on this arm and this elbow pad. Let's just slap a little bit on here. And a bit more. Yeah, you can already see the highlights going in, and it will get better once we've got the breathing apparatus also painted on. Did I paint it all red? By the looks of it, I did. So I'm just going to go in there and add some colour. Cool, and there, just do that a bit more. Right, so just another 9 of them to do that way, but you get the point. Right, okay, let's just wash that brush off. Right, so thank you for watching. If you've been watching this long, again, you know, we'll try and do some streaming again, but it's kind of when I get a bit of time for it. Hopefully that'll become easier soon enough. And if you've got any topics you want us to stream about, hopefully we'll do a more, we'll do a not a painting stream, we'll do more of a gaming catch-up and topic stream with Sam, and we'll talk about some horror games and other stuff, horror media that we've been watching. And yeah, if you're not following Dark Days Radio, then please do so. You know, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to, you know, keep in touch with updates on the Facebook and on our Twitter and on our WordPress and on our Podbean. So that is it. So see you for now.